Hey, deep divers. You guys sent in some seriously interesting stuff about consciousness this week. Let me tell you, this research is a total head scratcher.
What I find really interesting about this research paper, A Unifying Theory of Physics and Biological Information Through Consciousness, it's by Holly Pollard Wright, by the way,
Hmm.
is how ambitious it is. I mean, it's trying to use consciousness to explain, like, everything. Consciousness and the Big Bang. That's a tall order.
Okay, so let me get this straight. It's not just about like what makes you as conscious. We're talking about consciousness as this like major force in the universe itself.
Exactly. Pollard Wright lays out these 5 core elements, almost like the fundamental ingredients of reality. We've got the mind, think of it as the source of everything, and then you've got mind with a lowercase m that's like change, energy, that kind of thing.
Okay, so far so good.
Then there's substrate. It's basically the underlying structure of, well, everything.
Mm.
Kind of like the rules of the game, dictating how everything interacts.
So the mind is like the whole playing field. Mind is all the action happening on it, and substrate is the rule book.
That is a fantastic way to put it. Now, get this. This is where things get really wild. We come into play with the mind-observing ego and avatar living.
Wait, hold up. Go back for a sec. Mind observing ego. Avatar living.
Yeah, so basically, our sense of self, the me, that's like experiencing the world Pollard Wright, is saying it's like a character in a video game.
Hold on. So I'm like Mario, but my controller is my mind observing ego, and the game itself is the entire universe.
You got it. And just like in those games, our choices have consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
They shape how the game unfolds. That's where things get really trippy.
Trippy how? Like we're all living in a simulation, trippy. Because honestly, part of me is freaking out a little, but the other part of me, totally here for it.
It's definitely a mind-bending idea. And that's Pollard Wright's big goal here, bridging that gap between our minds and the physical world, the actual universe. They suggest that even before the Big Bang, there was this inconceivable reality.
Inconceivable reality. Okay, so before the universe, as we get it, there was something else.
It's less about it being a something and more about a state of being that we can't even really wrap our heads around right now. That's where the mind, in its purest form, existed.
Okay, so how do we get from inconceivable to, conceivable? And what about dark matter and dark energy? I always thought of them as these big mysteries, like the universe's missing pieces.
Well, get ready for this. Pollard Wright has a completely different take. They think dark energy and dark matter aren't just some mysterious forces. They're actually different forms of mind, that lowercase m we were talking about.
Hold up. Dark matter and dark energy are dot mind. I'm going to need you to unpack that one a little bit.
All right, so picture this. Dark energy is like the background hum of consciousness. It's everywhere, but not really doing anything in particular. Dark matter is specifically what Pollard Wright calls focal points of dark matter, or FPDMs. Those are more like tiny concentrated spots of consciousness.
FPDMs. It's like the universe has its own little brain cells. So FPDMs are like the organized, active part of dark matter.
Exactly. Pollard Wright describes these FPDMs as mini cosmic brains. And remember those rules we talked about, the substrate. These FPDMs are constantly interacting with them, like influencing how matter behaves at the most basic level.
So instead of just floating around being mysterious, dark matter is actually calling the shots. Are we talking like a cosmic consciousness here?
It's not so much a single cosmic consciousness, more like a network of them. Think of it like a giant web, with these FPDMs acting as these little hubs, always exchanging info, shaping how energy and matter flow.
Okay, so not one giant brain, more like the internet of consciousness. I like it. But how does this all connect back to the Big Bang? If the mind was already doing its thing in this inconceivable reality, what exactly banged?
Ah, the million-dollar question. See, in Pollard Wright's model, the Big Bang isn't the beginning, more like a wake-up call. Remember how we were talking about dark energy being this sort of passive form of mind?
Yeah, like the cosmic snooze button before the alarm goes off.
Nailed it. Pollard Wright believes the Big Bang was the moment those little pockets of mind, the FPDMs, became embodied. Like they woke up and suddenly realized, hey, we can mess with the physical world now.
So instead of the universe starting from nothing, it was more like everything just snapped into focus, like going from blurry to HD.
Exactly. That's what we perceive as the Big Bang.
My mind is officially blown. But, okay, if these FPDMs are everywhere, why isn't everything conscious? Why isn't my toaster having an existential crisis over here?
Well, Pollard Wright argues that consciousness, the kind we experience at least, needs the right conditions to emerge. They call it a cooperative condition.
Cooperative condition. Consciousness needs to be a team player.
Exactly. Like baking a cake, you can't just toss flour and sugar in a bowl and hope for the best. You need the right ingredients in the right amounts, doing their thing together, you
Our
know?
consciousness is similar. It comes from how matter is organized, guided by those FPDMs, and influenced by electromagnetic fields.
Electromagnetic fields, like the stuff that makes magnets stick together.
You got it. Pollard Wright thinks these fields are crucial for the FPDMs to communicate with, well, everything else. They even believe that consciousness itself might actually be a specific kind of electromagnetic radiation, what they call conical EMR.
Okay, that sounds a little technical, even for me. Break it down for me. So imagine a beam of light, but instead of going everywhere, it's focused into a cone. Pollard Wright says this conical EMR is how information, maybe even consciousness itself, is transmitted across the universe even.
So we're talking about consciousness literally woven into reality itself. Whoa!
It's a pretty radical idea, right?
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Remember the whole mind-observing ego and avatar living
Yeah,
thing?
like we're all just living in a giant video game.
Exactly. Pollard Wright is saying that our emotions, our sense of self, even our suffering, it's all part of this mind-observing ego interacting with
Mhm.
the universe through, well, our bodies. It's like our consciousness is playing a character. And all of our experiences, good and bad, are shaping who that character becomes.
So all the ups and downs, all the feels, it's all part of this cosmic dance.
That's one way to put it. But here's the kicker. Pollard Wright believes that our mind-observing ego doesn't just disappear when we die. It sticks around, taking all those lessons and consequences with it, and gets a new body.
Wait, are we talking reincarnation here?
Not quite reincarnation, more like a cosmic recycling system for consciousness. Pollard Wright calls it cyclic existence. Basically, when our bodies die, the information encoded in our FPDM, all those experiences, everything we did, gets carried into a new life.
Hold on, so you're saying the choices I make today could affect my next life. Talk about pressure. But okay, if our consciousness isn't stuck in our bodies the way we think, does that mean things like, I don't know, telepathy or spooky action at a distance are actually possible?
That's where things get really interesting. See, Pollard Wright doesn't think that spooky action is like paranormal or anything. You know that feeling you get when you just know something happened to someone you're close to, even if they're miles away? Pollard Wright thinks it's all about how interconnected consciousness really is. Like it's operating through this thing called the interoceptive network.
The whatchamacallit network. Help me out here. What is that again?
Okay, so it's basically how our bodies process all those feelings from inside. Like it's how we know when we're hungry or tired or when we just have this gut feeling about something, you know?
Okay, so you're telling me my gut is like plugged into the universe. I gotta say, that's kind of cool and kind of freaks me out at the same time.
Think about it this way. If consciousness is actually a part of the universe, part of everything, then it makes sense that there'd be a way for it to communicate with itself, right? Even across huge distances.
So, like, our minds could be having these mini chats across the universe without us even knowing. Deep divers, you hearing this? A universal network of consciousness. This is huge.
And this network, this whole interconnectedness thing, it might be how we explain stuff like empathy and intuition. Maybe that's why we feel connected to other people, to the planet even. Heck, maybe even to, like, the entire cosmos.
Okay, whoa. That is a lot to unpack, but let's go back to this cyclic existence thing for a sec. So if our actions in this life affect our next T life, does that mean there's like a cosmic scorecard? Do good things here equal a good time next time around?
Well, it's not quite that straightforward, but you're on the right track. Remember how the FPDMs are made of these oscillating strings? Well, Pollard Wright thinks every action we take, every choice we make, it's like we're creating these little ripples that change how those strings vibrate.
So every little thing we do is actually changing the universe, even if it's just on a teeny tiny level.
You got it. And those vibrations, they're like a cosmic record, basically. Everything we do gets encoded into our FPDM. So when we die, all that info, all those experiences, they get carried into our next life. Our consciousness is constantly learning, constantly growing.
It's kind of beautiful in a way, but also, man, the pressure. Like, we're not just responsible for ourselves, but we're also shaping the universe we're going to be a part of later. That's kind of intense. But what about the universe itself? Does this whole thing just go on forever, or is there like an end credits scene somewhere down the line?
That's where the big crunch comes in. Pollard Wright thinks that this whole expansion contraction cycle, all this cosmic life and death, it could all lead to the universe collapsing in on itself, only to be reborn in a new Big Bang.
The big crunch, huh? Like a universal reset button. Everything goes back to that inconceivable reality, and then boom, a brand new universe pops up. New Big Bang, new chance for consciousness to do its thing.
It's definitely a wild idea, but it really makes you think about how connected everything in the universe really is. I mean, we're talking from the smallest little particles all the way up to the biggest galaxies. We're all in this cosmic dance together.
Wow, deep divers. This deep dive has been, well, deep. So, according to this theory, we're all part of this giant web of consciousness. What we do matters, not just for us, but for the whole universe, even in the future. Pretty humbling stuff, and more than a little awe-inspiring.
And that's why we love digging into these topics. Whether you buy all of Pollard Wright's ideas or not, it really makes you think about our place in the universe. We're part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, deep divers, now we want to hear from YUU. What do you think about this whole interconnected consciousness thing? The big crunch, cyclic existence. Does any of this click for you? Head over to our social media and let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, happy diving.